Hey yo, welcome to my channel. My name is Naya, and in today's video I am going to be talking about the mass layoffs in the tech industry and how it affects international students on OPT and those who are on H1B work visa. This last year, since 2022, there has been a lot of layoffs in the tech industry. Now, in this year, 2023, we are still seeing the same trend, not just the layoffs in 2022, but we are still seeing the same thing in 2023. About 3 days ago, Microsoft laid off 10,000 employees. And Google is also laying off 12,000 employees, which is about like 6% of the total number of employees that they have. Each time I go into LinkedIn, I scroll on LinkedIn, all I'm seeing is I just got laid off. At this point, it's kind of depressing, and it's not just about, not having a job or not being able to fend for yourself. It is also how these layoffs impact international students, right? Now, as an international student, when you graduate from a college or university in the US, you're given something that is called OPT for a year, which is optional practical training, and that 1 year gives you the time to work. It's kind of giving you an employment authorization, so you can use that 1 year to actually find a job and work. But now the thing is, for OPT you have to actually find a job that you studied. Like, your job has to be in your major. So if you studied like computer science, you have to find a job like as a software engineer, as a data analyst, as a data science, as a data scientist, something like that, something in tech, right? You have to be working in tech. Now, as I mentioned before, you are given 1 year of OPT, but if you studied something in STEM, you're given an additional 2 years. So if you graduate from a college or university in the US, you're given either 1 year of OPT, which is the time you can use to work, or you're given 3 years of OPT in total if you studied STEM. Now, another restriction on your OPT is that for the first 1 year, you can work for any employer, right? But when you go into the 2 other years of OPT, if you're in STEM, which is called STEM OPT, there are more restrictions on you. The first one being that you have to work for an E-Verify company. So you can't just work for any company at all. Before you actually apply for a job or a company hires you, that company has to be E-Verified if you are on your STEM OPT. So that's also another restriction that you have when you're on OPT. Now, another thing also with being on OPT is that during your OPT, you have to find an employer that is willing to sponsor you. So a lot of times I hear some people say, oh, internationals are taking a lot of our jobs. No, international students are not taking your jobs, because actually before an employer can hire an international student, that employer has to be willing to sponsor that international student for what is called H1B, which is the work visa. Also, international students cannot actually take your jobs as an American citizen, because before an international student is actually sponsored, for a green card in a particular job, that employer has to make sure that no American can do that job, and that is a highly skilled job that the international student is doing. And which is why a lot of times you see international students from Africa, India, a lot of Asian countries, a lot of them go into tech or go into medical roles, because those are jobs that require to be very skilled. They are not just like a job that anybody can do. And a lot of employers are not willing to sponsor international students for H1B. So international students have all of these hurdles that they have to meet. The first being that they have to find a job that is in their major. So they can't just, graduate school and go work at like Walmart or McDonald's or something if they cannot find a corporate job yet. They have to actually find a job that is in their major. The second being they have to find a job that is willing to sponsor them for their H1B visa. And the third is, if they're on STEM OPT, they have to find a job in a company that is E-Verified. Now, with all of these hurdles, of course, it is so hard for international students to find a job. Like, personally, before I found my job, I applied to hundreds of companies. I don't even want to remember it because it was a very trying period. And in addition to all of these restrictions, international students also have to make sure when they graduate, they have to find a job within 90 days of their graduation. So if they graduated May 5th, they have to make sure that they are working by August 5th. If not, they have to leave the country. So there are like so many restrictions on international students. Even when they find a company that is willing to sponsor them for H1B, they might not still get the H1B, which is the work visa. So for H1B is a little bit different from OPT. OPT is like an optional practical training, but for H1B is an actual recognized work visa. You're given 3 years on H1B to work, and you're able to renew it for an additional 3 years. So H1B is kind of like 6 years in total, if that makes sense. Now, as an international student, even when you find a company that is willing to sponsor you for H1B, you might not still be able to get H1B because it is an actual lottery. Like, the company will sponsor you, the company is willing to sponsor you, but even when they sponsor you, you are rejected for H1B because you did not win the lottery. So these are all of the hurdles that international students have to overcome in finding and looking for a job after graduation. And this is after spending thousands of dollars schooling in the US. I saw a LinkedIn post of a girl that said her parents spent about $200,000, but she has to leave the US because she wasn't able to get the H1B lottery. So that's the kind of things international students face. If they are also lucky to be able to get on H1B, if an international student is able to go, from F1 visa, get OPT, and get the H1B lottery, and they're on H1B, and the company is, maybe filing a green card for them, if they lose their job, they have to leave the country within 60 days if they don't find a new job. So H1B also has a lot of restrictions the way OPT has restrictions. Now, how is this connected to the tech layoffs? Like I mentioned in the beginning of this video, Microsoft laid off 10,000 employees about 4 days ago. Google is laying off about 12,000. Last year, DoorDash laid off, I think, 1,250 employees. Cisco also laid off a lot of employees. So companies are actually laying off a lot of employees. And many of these employees, some of them are international students who are working with their OPT or with their H1B. You are in a volcanic position. You are under pressure to find a job immediately, or you have to leave the country. There was a post I saw on LinkedIn. That was actually the post that kind of triggered me, that made me make this video. A girl talked about how she got laid off in the Microsoft, mass layoffs. And she said that Microsoft was filing her green card for her. She's actually on H1B visa. Microsoft was filing her green card for her, but they had to cancel it, and she has to either leave the country or find a job within 60 days. That is so much pressure to be in as an international student, because it's like you are never settled. You are always thinking, oh, is the government going to make a new rule that is going to say, oh, international students have to leave the country in the next, 90 days or something? You are never certain. It doesn't matter how much money you're making, there is still that fear at the back of your mind that things are not all right. And this is something that international students have to face. With this mass layoffs that is happening in the tech industry, it's a really trying time for international students, the ones on OPT, and then the ones that are not actually international students anymore, because when you transition to H1B, you are no longer seen as an international student because you're now on a work visa. But like I mentioned before, a lot of international students transition from OPT to H1B. It is a trying time for those that are on OPT and H1B visa, and even those that are on like L1 visa, because that's also like a different visa type that you could be in and work in the United States. It's a really trying time, and I am just going to say, if you're an international student, hang in there. If you're going to make a post on LinkedIn for people to share and everything, do that. Whenever I see posts like that, even if I don't have any connection that I can connect the person to, what I personally do is I share it and I either comment for better, because that's the only way I can make a difference, even if it's a very tiny difference. So if you're in that position, I'm just going to say, hang in there. I pray things get better. We're in a recession now in this country, and it's affecting everything. I really hope this gets better. And if you're not an international student but one, just be kind to them, because they are passing through a lot. So yeah, this brings me to the end of this video, guys. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. And if you have questions, leave them in the comment section, and I will see you guys in another video.